Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mrs. Cappellini?
Here.
Mr. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Hanem?
Here.
Mr. McCann?
Here.
Mr. Richardson?
Here.
Ms. Stowe?
Here.
Mrs. Westfall?
Here.
All 7 members of City Council are present, therefore a quorum exists. We are holding this meeting via Zoom. We do have one guest in council chambers. I understand that's Joe V. And the chief is here. Mr. Aller is here. Mr. Sanford is with us as well, as is Mrs. Brining. With that, let's have our Pledge of Allegiance, this meeting led by Mrs. Cappellini.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions to the agenda. I have none for this evening. Mr. Fry?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Members of City Council?
Mr. Mayor, at some point, I would just like to get an update from on. It's kind of a COVID update, but I'm just curious where we are with our police officers getting vaccinated.
Why don't we do that right up the top is 4A, COVID police vaccinations. That's good information to know, and there is an update to share. Anything else from members of City Council? Hearing none. Mr. Sanford?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Snore?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
I don't believe Mr. Schroyer is with us tonight, unless he's the phone number I see.
That's Jean Abercrombie, Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Aller?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
And Mrs. Brining?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And tonight's agenda is approved as amended. We'll go right to agenda item 4, which is approval of our meeting minutes from our last meeting on February the 1st. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move adoption of the minutes for the council meeting of February 1st, 2021 as submitted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from February 1st, 2021 as submitted. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and the meeting minutes are approved. Added agenda item 4A. Chief, are you prepared to give us an update on the COVID vaccination status of our police division?
Certainly, Mayor. Not a whole lot of movement this last week. There weren't too many surplus vaccinations during the week. This weekend, however, there were opportunities for 2 of our staff to be vaccinated. So in total, we have, again, I need to check with a few folks. They don't contact the department directly. They contact the participants directly. But we have about 6 or 7 of our staff who've been vaccinated since they've started the surplus program through the county.
Thank you. Mr. Aller, any further update on other city employees?
No, we have had, I believe, 3 employees that have had it. We have nobody right now that is out with it, nor do we have anybody out on quarantine. So it's been pretty quiet, knock on wood.
Our zoning administrator, Tim, is back on the job, has been for the past week.
Yes.
All right. Any further questions about COVID update? Mr. Hanem, are you satisfied? Not sure you're there.
Absolutely. I was scheduled to get my vaccine today and got canceled because of the snow.
Hopefully they will automatically reschedule it for you. I'm sure that was a prize schedule to get it.
Just one of the advantages of being a senior citizen.
There aren't many advantages, but I took advantage of that as well. I got mine last Friday. And I had little, if no, side effects from it at all. I tried not to scream and hear all the people in the room hear it. Seemed to be okay. All right, let's move on to agenda item 5 then, which is proposed ordinance 15/2021. This is an annual ordinance to update all our codified ordinances. Mrs. Brining.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's actually not that many replacements today, and these are all just to make our code consistent with the changes that were made to the Ohio Revised Code. So I would recommend its approval.
I believe they were included in everybody's council packets, and it's well worth the time to put them into your codified ordinance binder. If there's any questions, I'm sure that Leslie or Laura in my office can help you out with that. We do need to officially accept those by ordinance 15/2021. Mr. Fry.
Mr. Mayor, I think that Ms. Stowe had a question.
Yes, I have a
I'm sorry.
How after this is approved, how long does it take for the online codes to be updated? Do you know?
We have a contract with that for that service, so I think we get it to them, but it does take a little bit of time. I can certainly ask them when we send these new round of correct revisions in and see how long it will be.
I was just curious how often we update the online ones with our.
I have been in contact with them, and they said it would be done within a week or so. So we should be all set here in about a week.
Great, thank you.
Very good. There's no further questions, Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce and read by title only ordinance number 15/2021. An ordinance to approve, adopt, and enact current replacement pages to the codified ordinances, to repeal ordinances in conflict therewith, to publish the enactment of a new matter, and I can't waive the second and third reading. So, and declaring I move passage of ordinance 15/2021 as an emergency measure.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 15/2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 15/2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item 6. This is a wall and slope easement agreement. This is for in front of or north of the Wyndham Hotel. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is between the property along the property line of the property that we now own, used to be known as Joe's Tire, and the hotel. We have designed a retaining wall for the entire distance of that grade difference there. A portion of that is behind the Georgia Coppolis property in front of Somo. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to come to terms with that section of the wall. But here, obviously, the city prepared the easements, and the hotel owners don't have any issue with the easement. And rather than hold on to this easement until such time that we might get an agreement with the other piece of property, we're going to move forward and get this easement. That way, if we have to build only this piece of the wall, we have the easement in place to do so. So we would recommend approval. The hotel's been really great to work with. They've been very cooperative. So we'd recommend approval.
Evan, this is Mark. I don't want to borrow trouble, but if we don't get the approval from the other property owner, do we have liability as the city?
There is some there, but it was part of the agreements that we had. I wouldn't really call liability. It was part of the agreements to solve there's a 5-foot encroachment. And that becomes problematic if we can't get if we don't do those easements. So that's one of the things we're trying to work on, but we're not getting any cooperation on the other side. So
understood. Thanks for the information.
Yep.
Any further questions? If not, I'd like to have Ms. Dow read this one. Really doesn't fit into any, but that's kind of building and grounds.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only. Hold on. Or are we just... Yeah, ordinance number 16-2021. Sorry, I've got to turn the page here. Accepting an easement from Louisville Title Agency for Northwest Ohio, Inc., trustee for retaining wall and slope maintenance purposes. I move for passage of ordinance resolution number 16-2021 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 16-2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 16-2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item 7. This has to do with the bridge rehabilitation project on Monroe Street over the north branch of the 10 Mile Creek. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This past week, we opened bids on February 9th, Tuesday, exactly a week ago. And we had 2 bidders on the project. And unfortunately, both bids were more than 10% of the engineer's estimate. According to Ohio Revised Code, we're not able to award anything that is above that 10% threshold, if you will. And so therefore, both bids were rejected. We've reached out to our project engineer as well as the contractors that bid the project and contractors that didn't bid the project but had plans to find out where the issues were and where the concerns were. We've ironed that out, we believe, and have revised the engineer's estimate in order to rebid the project and hopefully get some more bids in addition to the 2 that we received. So we revised the engineer's estimate to $285,788.79. The original estimate on this project, I'll give a round number, was about $207,000. And the lowest bid that we had was $277,000. The primary cause for the discrepancy was the consultant used ODOT estimating tool, and unfortunately, most of the ODOT projects are very large projects. You can imagine redecking, all of the deck over, Central Avenue over 475. that's a very large project. We have a very small project here. And the contractors that come in to do this hydro demolition, they charge a set amount per day. And so when you're spreading that cost out over a large project, it's not as big of a deal. When you have a very small project like ours is, it impacts your budget a lot. So that's where the primary issue was. This will, obviously this will use some funds, additional funds than what we had initially planned for in the capital improvement fund, but we'll keep an eye on that at capital improvement fund. Other projects may come in less. And then as we get to the end of the year, if we see that we may not have enough to do one of the end of the year projects, we'll come back to council and see if they wish to appropriate additional funds to do that project, or if we just hold something off. So we would request that the clerk be authorized to re-advertise for bids.
Evan, this is Mark again. I know that we were trying to coordinate the timing of this project with open cutting the street for the water supply for SOMO.
Yep.
Is this change or reissuing bids potentially going to mess with that timing at all, in your opinion?
No, when we were talking with the contractors, both the ones that did bid and the others that didn't bid, and the ones that didn't bid, they didn't bid because they saw that they were so far over the estimate, they just didn't submit anything. All of them, that was a question that we asked all of them, and they're like, no, we'll still we'll be on board as far as timing. So
great.
All right, what the service director is asking for tonight is authorization to rebid this project, re-advertise and rebid the project, and he has, as he said, documented a new estimate for the job. Does this project utilize state funding, Mr. Aller?
No, this project is all us. Yeah, this doesn't have any state funding in it.
On occasion in the past, we have proceeded with a project that exceeded 10%, but since we do have time in this case, I think it's prudent to do this, and perhaps we'll see some advantage when the bids come back in a second time. So I am looking for a motion to allow us to rebid this. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we authorize the clerk to re-advertise for bids for the Luke Monroe 0127 Bridge Rehabilitation Project.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, authorizing the clerk to re-advertise for bids. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries, and we will get that ad in the paper very quickly. Moving on to agenda item 8. This has to do with the large diameter sanitary sewer lining project. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We started the week off last week a little rough with the bids coming in as high as they did on the bridge project, but we finished the week strong in that the sanitary sewer lining project actually came in considerably less than what we had estimated. The original estimate on this project was just under $1.7 million. And the bids that we got, the low bid that we got was from Visu Sewer of Ohio in the amount of $1,092,743.50. So considerably less than the original estimate. We have secured an OPWC grant for 49% of the project, and that'll cover about $535,444. And then the remaining cost of that, $557,299.18 will be the city's responsibility. Hopefully you'll recall that we had talked about this project, the city's portion, that we would finance that through an OWDA loan. And we continue to recommend that we do that. It would be a 20-year loan through the Ohio Water Development Authority, and the current interest rate on that is 1.68%. That could change because we'll be in the March market, and it does change monthly, but it's, I wouldn't anticipate changing that much. Our current rate structure does include the anticipated debt payment for this loan, and actually, that rate structure was adjusted based on a $1.7 million project, and with this project, we may not have to do the increase that was planned for phase 2. It may take care of both of them, so we'll keep an eye on that. I do need approval to finish up the OWDA loan. The process for this is I do the OWDA loan. It runs through their board approval. And then once we get their board approval, then I'll bring the project back to council for award of the project to the contractor. So I have to get all of the OWDA loan process finished first. So I would recommend request approval to apply for a loan from the Ohio Water Development Authority in the amount of $666,500. That's taking the amount that we know we have to cover, plus it's adding a 10% contingency to the project so that if anything happens during construction, we're already covered with the loan. So I would ask for permission to apply for that loan.
Hey, Kevin, this is not to look a gift horse in the mouth. $700,000 is a big difference in a bid of $1.7 million.
Yes, it is. No, the second low bid was about 50,000 off of this, and then we had 2 more bids within about 150, 200,000 of it. So
great.
I'm comfortable that and this is a good company. So I'm comfortable with it. Obviously, we're not doing the award yet, anyways. But that's something. When you got it, if you got one at $700,000 low, and the next one's at $500,000, then we take a look. But I'm pretty comfortable that we got good bids on this one.
Okay, thank you.
This is a difficult project. I don't know if you're aware of it, but Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, this one will result in the closing of Central Avenue for a construction period while the effluent is pumped up and out of the pipe and across Central Avenue while the pipe is lined.
Yeah, it'll be a 4-day closure, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. And that has to be after August 31st, I believe it is. It's the Solheim Cup is the controlling factor on that.
So now, if you want to claim plausible deniability, you can go ahead and do that, but at least you know what it's about, because people are this is gonna impact a lot of people for 4 days, no doubt about it. But it's coming.
Where is this on Central Avenue?
At McCord Road.
West side of McCord.
Yeah, our trunk sewer.
Our pumping station is just there north, and this is the line that heads on south towards Waterville.
Yep. The metering station is basically at the shopping center there, and then the next 2 sections to the south are ours, the city of Sylvania's, and the one section runs underneath Central Avenue, and there's just no other way to do it. So,
Mr. Aller, are you on vacation that week when that job's being done?
I would. I am going to turn gray for those 4 days. I assure you of that.
We got a couple of those coming. There's one the first week or 2 of June, and then we got another one here early September. I think those are.
Yep.
That one's clear down there in the township, though.
We need to warn the trustees of what's coming.
Oh, most definitely. Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we do have an ordinance in your packets, Ordinance 17, 2021, to apply and accept and enter into this agreement for the funding from the state of Ohio for this project. Mr. McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only Ordinance 17-2021, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to apply for, accept, enter into a cooperative agreement for construction of the trunk sanitary sewer lining phase 1 project between the City of Sylvania and the Ohio Water Development Authority. I move passage of ordinance 17-2021 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 17-2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 17-2021 is enacted as an emergency measure.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 9. This is zoning ordinance application number SUP 1-2021, and it is for a cell phone tower on the site of Northview High School. And it is for referral to the Planning Commission. Council has asked some questions, and I'm going to defer to Mrs. Brining at this point. We do have a representative or two of the requesting cell tower operators on our call here. Mrs. Brining.
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor. Jean Abercrombie is representing the applicant, and then the actual applicant is available on Zoom. And I'm not sure if I can unmute them if there's questions that council wants to ask.
Mr. McCann, you had questions earlier in the week.
Yeah, I don't really have questions for these folks, but I would like, I do have some topics that I hope our planning commission would consider along with this application. I think I've raised some issues about about technical obsolescence of these towers and the operational life expectancy of them. I don't know enough about that. I know I have been involved in some other cell tower leases over the years, but there are three questions that I would hope the Planning Commission would be able to investigate in conjunction with our administrative staff. The first is, I assume that there are recognized structural standards for cell towers of this type, and I would like to know what they are, and I would like to know the Planning Commission's view about requiring an annual certification that the towers meet those safety standards. I mean, we're going to put this tower on the right next to the high school's parking lot. They need a permit because it's our duty to provide that they are safe for our community. And so one of the things I would be very interested in is including an annual certification that the tower meets whatever applicable standards there are out there for cell towers of this type. I don't want it to be put up and ignored for 50 years and then and somewhere along the line it falls over. I'm sure there are inspection standards and those sorts of things, and I would like to have that sort of a certification to the city as a condition of the use permit. The other issue that I think is relevant is that this tower is not going to be there forever. It is not something that I would characterize as a desirable piece of aesthetic beauty to our city, and I do have serious concerns about the technological obsolescence that will come along, and that could very well be in my lifetime. And I would like to consider including a conditional requirement that as a condition of issuing the permit, that there be financial assurance provided in some way, providing for the removal of the tower at the end of its useful life. In my my day job as a regulatory lawyer, I've been involved in a lot of hazardous waste permits and solid waste permit obligations, and those permits always come with a requirement that the permittee establish financial assurance for closure of those facilities at the end of life. I think this tower may have a very short life. The little bit of research that I've done about it, I know that between geosynchronous and actually low-level satellite programs that are being implemented by guys like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, there is clearly an intention to compete directly with these towers and to put them out of business. And the problem with that is if they are successful, the business that will be left behind will not have the revenue to going forward to dismantle these towers, which is why I think a financial assurance mechanism similar to those that I'm very familiar with in the hazardous waste permitting field would be very appropriate for this permit. And obviously, we're not at a stage where we're going to decide any of that tonight. But those are things that I would commend to the Planning Commission to consider and investigate and address, because those very much will impact the decision we make on whether to issue this permit or not.
Those are very responsible and good issues, Mr. Hanem. I appreciate it. The ones of us on the call here that can think back 50 years to 1971, nobody would have known what you were talking about when you said a cell phone or a cell phone tower. And I can recall I could drive from Sylvania to Columbus, and the only towers you would see would be an occasional telephone or radio broadcast tower. But now when you drive across the state, you can always spot multiple towers, regardless of where you are out in rural areas. The towers are always visible. So there's a lot of them that this could affect. And those are good questions. And from a technology standpoint, 50 years is an eternity. It will change. I'm sure of that. All right.
I had
a representative of the applicant online. I don't know whether he has a preliminary response to that or wants to wait for the Plan Commission, but we will ask the question at our Plan Commission meeting.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. McCann.
I have a question for Ms. Brining. Would it be appropriate for the Planning Commission to take on those questions and the questions that have been asked and answered, or would it be suitable for the zoning committee?
I think the Plan Commission is appropriate. Either one is appropriate. I think the Plan Commission can investigate when it comes back from the Plan Commission with its recommendation, if you can request additional information on those at the public hearing or refer it to a committee at that point.
Okay. Then I just have one other question that I did submit, and this is to Mr. Carr. I'm not sure if he's on the phone.
He is. I apologize, Mr. McCann. I asked him to unmute. He is still on mute. He's the 317 number, if you can see that on your screen. Mr. Abercrombie may be able to respond to your question. He is unmuted.
I think he just unmuted.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right, great.
Yes, this is Steve Carr, and I did get an email from Mr. McCann and forwarded that to Gene Abercrombie, who in turn forwarded responses back to the City of Sylvania's legal representative.
There was one question that I had asked, and it was the last one, and maybe it was a poorly worded fashion here, but it says, with regard to, it is my understanding that the Plan Commission will review and approve this application and subsequently City Council and its applicable committee will review and grant final approval. So who told you that this would be approved?
Nobody told.
That is what they are hoping to have happen.
Then, I'm just asking. Was it a poorly worded?
For the project to proceed, that is what will have to happen.
Yeah, I mean, nobody basically said, "Hey, yeah, this will get approved." We just go through our standard operating procedures, understand the aspects of your zoning code, also understand the demands of what our customer base needs in order to have adequate and reliable service for this facility. So that's why we submitted a special use permit application under the standards of your code.
Full disclosure, I'm a Verizon customer.
I have a quick question.
There was one issue that was brought up in the responses to your questions that I read today. One was there were only two applicable sites in the area where you wanted it, Northview or Highland Meadows Golf Club. And my question about that is, I assume that's because of the size of the site required. I think we've been through this on other cell locations that there has to be enough on-site area for the tower to be blown down. I'm sorry to say that, Mr. Hanem, but for it to fall without falling on a neighbor. Is that correct?
Both those locations, and this is Steve Carr again, were in the geographical area designed by a radio frequency engineer as being suitable for a place.
Well, there's a lot more properties in that area. My question was the size of the parcel. Are those the only two that sized out large enough? Or the only two you chose to do?
No, it's basically a lot of the other, that you kind of want to have a large property based on some of the aspects of zoning boards and their thoughts of these towers collapsing over like a pendulum. They aren't designed to do that. They are designed to collapse within themselves per the engineering aspects that we follow and abide by per building code standards. But those both those properties were in the geographical area where we could meet our coverage objective. And also they were in fact larger parcels of property where we weren't sticking the facility close to existing residential areas that this site is trying to improve coverage on.
I think an explanation of that will be important to the Plan Commission to review why this site is the chosen site.
Understood. We have a full deliberation from our RF engineers that was part of our submittal of our application. We also provided photo simulations of the proposed facility to give everybody a feel for the presence of the facility prior to its existence and after its existence through photo simulation.
Very good.
And I did look at the application more closely than I usually do at this stage. So there are, this is not an aesthetic addition to our community. I understand there are other things there, but, I'd be very interested in understanding better the technical standards that you're talking about for failure of the tower. And I'm very interested in the issue about end of life removal of the tower.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Carr, if that's all right.
Ms. Dow, yes.
I was hoping for just a little clarification on sheet number C2. It's the enlarged site plan. On that, it's showing 2 more pads for future carriers. And I was just wondering if that's for expanding Verizon carrier coverage or if that makes it available for other major carriers as well.
It makes it available for other major carriers. This is a joint application that is served by Tarpon Towers, who is the asset holding entity that is basically performing a build-to-suit build of this structure for Verizon Wireless. And so basically, the Tarpon Towers builds the tower, and also their business model is to promote co-location. So many zoning ordinances and codes promote co-location. So with this type of business model, the tower owner is motivated to have that co-location occur. And those future pads, or if two other future carriers wanted to co-locate on this structure, we have it set up ready to go to make that happen.
Okay, so this could, by having this be a co-location tower, it could save the need for having additional towers in other places in the city if demand requires it in the future.
That is correct.
Thank you.
There are multiple carriers using the city's water tower in Burnham Park, and you can see that there are separate pads at the bottom of that for those different carriers as well. Mr. Aller, I'm not sure how many are up there, but we expanded the site to allow another one on there maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, we have 3 carriers that have rights to that tank. One is currently not in service. They proposed a couple changes and new setup up there, but they just haven't moved forward with it.
All right. Typically, when there's a referral that goes to the Plan Commission, the meeting minutes referring it to the Plan Commission are forwarded to the Plan Commission. And I think we need to make sure those minutes include the questions that Mr. Hanem asked and make sure that we get those answered. The technical information that was referred to about the appearance and the radio characteristics are in the council packets, I believe. They're in the big packet that you have, if you'd like to review those as well. It will go to the Plan Commission on March 10th, so it will not be back to you for at least a month. And I assume, Mrs. Brining, this will require a public hearing as well?
Yes, this will require, this will require a public hearing. I believe Jean Abercrombie wanted to comment quickly, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Gene Abercrombie. I'm an attorney with Eastman and Smith, and I represent the applicant. I think we appreciate all of the questions, especially being raised at this stage, so that we can adequately address them when we are in front of Plan Commission. And all of the questions raised were good, and I believe that we have answers, or can be prepared to have answers for Plan Commission, and then ultimately, if council members come up with additional questions, if you want to have them submitted through Mrs. Brenning and then back to me, that would probably be the most efficient. We did get through Mrs. Brenning and Mr. McCann some questions. I thought it most appropriate to respond back to the city's law director. So I assume that you all have received the response to the questions that were submitted thus far. But the one comment that I wanted to make, there has been a lot of discussion with respect to the site and with respect to the aesthetics. But I think the other part of the equation that council will ultimately need to consider, not tonight, obviously, is the needs of the community with respect to cellular service, particularly for emergency situations. And it is our understanding that there are some coverage gaps in that area, and the Sylvania School District Board of Education, when they met, a couple of the members commented on the fact of call drops and inability to get signal in that particular area. So I think that, in the spirit of total evaluation here, council needs to consider that we're dealing with safety of its residents and the efficiency of its services, as well as the aesthetics and all of the negative aspects that have been talked about this evening.
Gene, just go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, unless there are any specific questions, that's all I had. Thank you.
Gene, I have a specific observation for you, and that is that we are very interested in the safety of our community. That's what we do. That's why we're all here. The issues that I've raised are economic, not safety related, and I just want to make sure that you don't leave the city holding the bag at the end of the day on this tower. So it's a really simple economic issue for you, unrelated to the safety of our community. And I want to make sure I don't want this to be characterized in any way that this council was in any way did not have the safety of its constituents at the forefront in their consideration of this. The safety also comes at the end of life of this tower, when you're not operating, when our operators are no longer operating it, and it's standing there, and somebody's got to pay to remove it, because it will have to be removed. It won't stand forever. This is not like a regular building that will go on to a secondary use. This is a single use major piece of construction that will have to be removed at its end of life, and we want to make sure that that the economic conditions are available to assure that can happen.
Completely understand and respect that issue, but the counterpoint that I would have there is keep in mind that it is another public entity that we are dealing with. It is not a private landowner. You've got Sylvania School District that is the owner of the property. You can guarantee that they will certainly have an interest in making sure that it is removed pursuant to the terms of the lease agreement. So I think some of the normal concerns, if you were dealing with a private landowner, are mitigated by the fact that you have a fellow public, for lack of a better term, partner that will be overseeing all of those issues and the safety of its students.
Well, Gene, you can talk with the school board directly, and you'll understand that sometimes I have a different view of safety than the school board does. And in this particular instance, we will be issuing the special permit. We will be issuing let me finish. We'll be issuing the special use permit, and we will impose the conditions as part of that special use permit that council collectively thinks is in the best interest of the community. And then you can contract with the school board in any way consistent with that.
All right. I think we're ready to refer this to the Plan Commission for their review and recommendation. Mr. Hanum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move that we refer application number SUP-1-2021 to the Planning Commission for its review and recommendation, and would request that they consider the issues that council has raised this evening as part of their recommendation.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries, and this will be placed on the Plan Commission agenda for their next meeting on Wednesday, March the 10th at 5:30. All right, moving to the second page of our agenda. We are up to agenda item 10. This is proposed ordinance 18/2021, and it is for the annexation agreement with the Sylvania Township Board of Trustees. Mr. Sanford, you watched electronically the vote of the township trustees this afternoon, and it's my understanding that they did approve this by a vote of 3-0.
Yes, Mayor, that is correct.
And we also have the Township Administrator, Oliver Turner, on the Zoom call here. Mr. Turner, you're welcome to make comments. You're not expected to. You don't have to, but if you'd like to make any comments, they are welcome. While you're thinking about that, Mrs. Brining, are there any changes to the agreement as from what council was previously furnished with at our last council meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. No, there are none. the agreement is as it was last presented.
All right. Are there questions from City Council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fry.
I don't have any questions, but I did want to say and express my appreciation for the administration and your leadership on this effort and cooperation and working out this agreement with the township trustees and Mr. Turner's efforts and Mr. Sanford's efforts. I know Ms. Brining was instrumental in this as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for the effort up to this point and look forward to consideration here in a moment.
I certainly concur in that gratefulness.
Thank you. I would also like to compliment Mr. Sanford, Mrs. Brining, and Mr. Turner, and all of the city staff as well. This was a big issue to negotiate. There was a lot of back and forth and give and take. It first began discussion in this current form about 4 years ago. But it has been my hope for over 20 years to establish a JET agreement with Sylvania Township. We had one, I thought, negotiated about 20 years ago, and it was denied literally at the last minute. This is more than a JET agreement. This is a JET agreement and an annexation agreement at the same time. And I think it's a win for our community. It will help keep tax dollars already being paid in our community rather than being taken back to other communities as a result of not having an income tax in place in specific areas of Sylvania Township. It will also take away the need for annexation of established residential neighborhoods in the township, and perhaps reduce the need for the city to annex properties adjacent to the city into the city limits because of the JED terms that are in it. So this is a win for our entire community, township and city residents alike. And I'm happy that we are able to bring this to you tonight. We do have a fairly straightforward ordinance 18, 2021 for your approval tonight. If there's no further questions or comments, I'd like to proceed with that. Either Mr. Hanem or Mr. Fry should read this one. Mr. Hanem, I think it is a zoning issue. But
I'd be happy to defer to Mr. Hanem on this.
All right.
Thanks, Mark. Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of ordinance number 18-2021. I will read by title only, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an annexation agreement with the Sylvania Township Board of Trustees on behalf of the city of Sylvania, Ohio, and move adoption of ordinance number 18-2021 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 18, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 18, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you all. I'm glad that it was a unanimous vote both on the cities and the township sides. That speaks well of the agreement that's been reached. And again, thank you, Mr. Turner. I know you're on the Zoom call here for all your help. You were instrumental in helping to negotiate this. So thank you for your professional abilities. With that, that's a big event, but let's move on to agenda item 11, which is approval of items to be offered for auction on Gov Deals. And these are items from the police department, the IT department, and the zoning department. Mr. Aller, you want to go over these?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I don't know. I'm going to talk to Mrs. Booker about the order of the agenda. To follow an annexation agreement with getting rid of 15-year-old vehicles. That's not good placement. But
our attempts for an annexation agreement or a jet agreement are older than that. So it's
much, yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have 4 vehicles that are ready to be given to someone else that maybe have a better use for them. We've got a 2007 Ford Explorer and a 2009 Ford Crown Victoria out of the police department, a 2005 Dodge Grand Caravan that the IT department has been using, and a 2007 Chevy Equinox that the zoning department has been using. Through some of the other vehicle purchases, we've kind of done the hand-me-down process. On some of these, IT and zoning are getting some of the vehicles that were, if we bought new vehicles, we're using some of the vehicles that they're replacing and handing them down to IT and zoning. So these are the final vehicles that we would like to get rid of, and we ask for authorization to advertise them on GovDeals.
Just a correction, what you said, our intention is not to give them away, it's to sell them away.
You are correct. My apologies.
All right. Mr. Fry, is there a motion to authorize these vehicles for sale on GovDeals?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to authorize the administration to put on the GovDeals website the vehicles for the police department, IT, and zoning departments.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and those items are authorized. Agenda item 12. Are there any committee reports to be made by committee chairman at this time? Or new items for committee referral? All right, we do have an executive session scheduled next. This is for the discussion of the potential sale of real estate.
Mr. Mayor, before we consider executive session, I just wanted to briefly mention and thank the streets department for their diligence. I was driving on the streets this afternoon and did a phenomenal job in clearing the streets. So, Mr. Eiler and Mr. Mayor, if you would pass that through to the rest of the staff, I'd certainly appreciate it.
We certainly will. I did as well. I've been around the city 3 times a day to see on progress. Plus, I can report that I was out clearing my driveway and the snowplow went the other direction. He leaned out the window and waved to me, but then turned around and quickly came back and plowed me right in. But I did know to get out of the way. So that
just doing his job.
That's right. And it was wonderful. It was perfect snow for plowing, even though there was 12.4 inches of it. It wasn't the wet, slushy stuff we so often get. This was nice powdery stuff and worked out very well. They have been up and down my street, and I just understand, Mr. McCann, they made the second pass on your street as well, probably most of your streets by now.
Third pass just happened while we were at the meeting, and he plowed me in.
That's what happened.
Thank you, Kevin.
And the purpose for that is we try to get a plow to every street and at least go up and down the street once and get all the streets done. Then we come back later and plow it out wider so the post office can get the mailboxes and the street is full width and we can park along the streets again. It's just, we've talked about that. There's just no other way around it than to plow people back in again. And I know Mr. Eller does not do it because he doesn't like people. That's what happens.
Yes, if someone could invent a plow that stopped plowing right in front of driveways, you'd be quite rich. But so far, it hasn't. It's not on the market yet that I'm aware of. So
5G will fix that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if any of you saw. I don't want to belabor the meeting, but there was a post on Facebook today of one of our drivers. A car was stuck, and one of our drivers did the plowing in the area, and then got out of the vehicle and helped the woman get out and move on, and she was very appreciative. So that's the kind of people that we have working for us. So they do a good job.
Very good.
Very good.
Mr. Hayden, I got to go back to your comment. 5G is going to change that. I understand 5G leads to mind control as well. So
well, I don't know about that, but it will enable technological fixes that you could probably, as you approach a driveway, divert the angle of that blade.
They'd have to change the angle of the blade to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the technology will be there, and it's an instantaneous communication. It's in light of this application, and I think we all got the T-Mobile 5G freebie ad in our emails, and I talked to the T-Mobile folks. I'm telling you, this 5G stuff, I don't fully understand it, but it's going to be again a new world. I read Alvin Toffler's Future Shock in 1969, and I feel like I'm living it now. I mean, the world this 5G stuff is significant. It's what's going to do the autonomous vehicle thing too, which I talk about all the time.
Are they able to be manipulated on the move like that or not?
Excuse me?
Are our current snow blades able to change angle on the go now?
No, they're not. And
because if they are, that snowplow driver should have changed his angle before he went by my driveway.
No, this is all future stuff. This is all coming.
Yeah, it can't change quite that fast. I will say, however, that the technology actually there are blocks, basically a plate that the technology is there that can come down and block the driveway. However, it's used in very rural areas where you hit a driveway, once a mile or something like that. In the city, it just can't, it can't operate like that.
Well, maybe by then it'll be able to.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I am informed that we are now technologically ready to go into our executive session. I need a motion and a second to go into committee of the whole executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I need the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Haynem?
Yes.
Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Stowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mrs. Capellini?
Yes.
Vote is 7-0 to go into executive session committee of the whole. All right. City Council has returned from their committee of the whole executive session, and I can report that only the potential sale of property and 2 items of pending litigation were discussed. No action was taken in the executive session, and there is no action to be taken at this time as a result of the executive session. This brings us to the end of our agenda for tonight's meeting. If there's no further items, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries, and this council stands adjourned until its next regularly scheduled meeting 13 nights from tonight on Monday, March 1st at 7:30 p.m. Thank you all. This was a big council meeting with that annexation agreement. All be well.
Greg, congratulations on this. I know you've been
Well
working
done.
on this for a long time.
Absolutely.
It's a great win.
I hope it works out for the best. Thank you.